When you're eligible and you're donating to charities, you should be doing so through a qualified charitable distribution, and yet many people still pass on it. Why? I've got that reason and more coming up. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. The qualified charitable distribution is one of my favorite tax planning strategies out there. And thankfully, even though the required minimum distribution age has evolved and shifted over the past couple of Secure Acts 1.0, when RMD shifted from 70 and a half to age 72, and then the most recent Secure Act 2.0, which moved it from 72 to 73, eventually moving it to 75. The rules around the qualified charitable distribution have not changed, which means great news. It doesn't appear to be within Congress's sights on, well, we've got to change this. This might be too good to be true, and people are leveraging these rules to improve their tax picture way too much. No, that doesn't appear to be on their radar at all. So to me, if you're eligible to do a qualified charitable distribution, I'll explain that eligibility here in just a second, and you're donating to charities, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. I'm not trying to shame anyone, because I've taught this several times to people where like the conclusion is, yeah, this is a no-brainer, and yet they don't do it. And I wanted to talk about some of the reasons why. Maybe you can overcome these for you, or if you're helping mom and dad with their finances and they qualify, helping them overcome some of these hurdles as well to receive this no-brainer tax benefit. So here's how the qualified charitable distribution works. You've got to be 70 and a half or older. Okay, you've got to be 70 and a half or older. And if you are, and you've got pre-tax retirement accounts, an IRA, essentially, it's got to be an IRA, can't be from an old 401k, something like that. And you've got an IRA, but you're also donating to a 501c3 charity, you can make a distribution sending money directly from that IRA directly to that charity. And in doing so, that money will not land as taxable income on your return. Versus right now, say, for example, you're receiving your Social Security, and to supplement your Social Security, you're drawing, a couple $1,000s out of your IRA every single month. And those are your income sources. Well, every single month, or maybe even every week, whatever, you give a little bit of donation to the church, or a little bit of donation to some causes that you care about. Well, your Social Security and that IRA withdrawal, those are both taxable. They land as income on your tax return. And then when you do your taxes, they show up in the appropriate boxes, but then also what you're going to provide to your tax preparer is, these are my donations to eligible charities. And for many people, when they add up your charitable contributions and your mortgage interest, if you still have it, although most people at that age don't have a mortgage, any other, state, local taxes, property taxes, that sort of stuff, right now, it's unlikely that reaches the threshold where it's going to make sense for you to itemize your taxes, meaning that you're having to claim all of the income as income on your return, but you're not getting any tax benefit on your tax return for donating to the charity. Therefore, it's a no-brainer if instead of you receiving that full couple $1,000s or whatever it is per month from your IRA, you receive a lesser amount, and instead have the amount that you're going to donate to the church or give to the church or give to charity anyway, go directly from your IRA to that charity. They're still receiving the same amount of money, and you're still then net receiving the same amount of money. It's just less taxable income. And you might say, well, I'm not making the donation to get I'm not giving to the church to get the tax benefit. I know, absolutely. However, if the rules allow, then you should get it. It's sort of like, I'm not saving up into my 401k purely for the tax benefits. I'm saving because I want to retire someday. Well, that's right. But you're never going to contribute to your 401k pre-tax and then say, yeah, don't give me the deduction. I don't need it. I'm really just doing this for my retirement. No, give me the deduction. And so a qualified charitable distribution. And further, even though the RMD rules have changed, you can still do this at or after age 70 and a half. And once RMD starts, a QCD can actually qualify for some of your RMD. Therefore, and I've done some videos on this before, therefore, if you don't need all of your RMD or you're not drawing anything right now and then all of a sudden you're forced to and you're like, I don't really need it, and you're donating to charities, doing a qualified charitable distribution first will count towards part of your RMD or all of your RMD. So I've taught this, hundreds of times, and our team of CFPs have taught this hundreds of times, and yet almost every time it's sort of a no-brainer, and yet there's still a handful of folks that I've taught it to or we've taught it to that say, oh, that makes a lot of sense, and then don't do it. And so to help, I thought maybe talking through, well, what are those reasons? And they never explicitly say those reasons, but I've come to kind of recognize these reasons, the hesitancies, the things that have held them back. By far, the number one reason why folks are not doing a qualified charitable distribution, even though they're eligible, and even though I would put it in that no-brainer status, is habit. It's habit. They're just used to having cash flow coming in, and every single week or every single month or once a year when we get that call or that letter, we just make a donation out of our cash and our cash flow, out of the bank account. That's just what we do. It's what we've always done. And I get it. When you're in your 70s, you definitely have long ingrained habits, and it can feel hard to break. However, it's very much worth it to talk through this with your certified financial planner and say, well, how can we establish a new habit that doesn't add significant complexity, right? That maybe even makes things easier because you're not needing to make that donation yourself or what have you, and make it set up, extremely easy, and build a new habit. Not one that's complicated, but just a slight adjustment. Sometimes, and I'd still say it's sort of connected to this overarching reason of, well, my habits are doing this. Sometimes you might learn about this qualified charitable distribution and think, it's later in the year. I've already made a lot of donations out of pocket already, so it's sort of too late to do it for this year. Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I would put that under the same category of habit. And no, well, let's just start it now. Let's just start it now moving forward. Don't worry about, well, yeah, I should have been doing this all along. Should have been doing it all along is no reason to say, well, I'm not going to do it moving forward. So yes, it's a change. It doesn't need to be more complicated. And I would encourage you that it's very easy to build a new habit with this. Second obstacle that I've seen, and I have gotten this question is, well, I like to donate to the church. I like to donate to this cause every week or every month. And I feel, this is obviously a not-for-profit. They need the resources. So having the resources on an ongoing basis makes sense. And yes, it is much easier to do a qualified charitable distribution once a year. That is much easier. There's much less red tape and paperwork and all of that sort of stuff. However, you can and should still be able to do that every week or every month, setting it up automatically from your IRA directly to that institution. And I would stress it again, I mentioned it when I was explaining it. This money cannot go to you and then to the organization in order to qualify. If that happens, it will be taxable to you. But having it go directly from your IRA directly to that institution, that's where that becomes a qualified charitable distribution, and you can set that up on an automatic basis as well. Lastly, you could just check with the institution and say, hey, is it beneficial if I make this, if I continue to make this contribution weekly or monthly, or would it be okay if it was quarterly or once a year? Do you have a preference? And just see, not because you're hoping that they say I don't have a preference, but just check with them. But if you wanted to do it, monthly or whatever, you can set that up automatically. Should be able to. And then the final reason or obstacle that I would assume that, just based on some of the questions, that some people hear about a qualified charitable distribution and it makes sense for them to do, but they don't do it, is they're not sure the savings are really going to amount to much. Okay, this is a change, going back to the habit. It's a change, and it's not going to make things more complicated, but I sort of like how I'm doing it. And the tax savings probably aren't that much. Well, can't cover every situation, but let's assume that you donate to the church or nonprofit $500 a month. Okay, so $6,000 for the year. If you're in the 22% tax bracket and say just average 5% state tax rate as well, it's about a $1,600 tax savings. And you're not doing this for the tax savings. You're not donating for the tax savings, but if it's there, not like, well, you've got to jump through these flaming hoops and pat your head and rub your belly while standing on one foot. It's not, if it's that complicated, then yeah, okay. But it's not. It's just a slight change, and that's a pretty significant tax savings in that example. Further, depending on your situation, your tax savings could actually mean you pay less tax on your Social Security. That's right, because these dollars don't land on your tax return as taxable income, and there's a formula that determines, well, how much other income do you have that's coming in, and that will factor into how much Social Security gets pulled over and is taxable. So could help you there, could even help you with IRMA, the income-related monthly adjustment amount, how much you pay for your Medicare Part B and Part D. So don't underestimate the tax savings. Now, if you're only donating $200 or $300 a year, then maybe, yeah, it might be a little bit of a change, and really just $10 or $15 of tax savings, probably doesn't make much sense. But for most people, it makes far more sense. It's much more valuable than you might otherwise think. So should you be doing a qualified charitable distribution? Or if you're not at this stage yet, what are the reasons that might hold you back once you get there? Or if you're helping mom and dad with their finances, is this something that makes sense for them? Work with your certified financial planner. That CFP needs to be doing tax planning with you, cash flow planning, that's present financial position, investment planning, retirement planning. This decision sits at the epicenter of all 6 areas of your financial life to see if it makes sense for you. So work with your CFP on that. If you don't have a CFP on your team, contact one on my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with K, wisemoneyshow.com. You can find us there as well, or send us an email, info@Korhorn.com. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.